¿Qué pasó, güey? It's your homeboy Quetzalcoatl. Welcome back to the Fuck Your Life Boxing Show. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Saturday night's fight between Joe Smith and Bernard Hopkins. Now, the plan for this fight was we were supposed to see one last glimpse of greatness from Bernard Hopkins before he rode into retirement. He was supposed to go in there as a 51-year-old, make Joe Smith look like a trash fighter, and then bow out of the sport. But instead, the fight turned into a fucking disaster for him. But Bernard Hopkins had actually got off to a decent start in this fight. Now, he did get rocked a bit in that first round when Joe Smith caught him with a couple of clean shots. But Bernard Hopkins was sneaking in some nice right hands himself. He was moving well in the ring. But if there's something that I would have to criticize him for that he was doing throughout the entire fight, was that he was up against the ropes far too much in this fight. I thought that he would have been far more effective boxing in the middle of the ring. But at 51 years old, maybe Hopkins just didn't have the stamina for that type of a fight. I don't know what it was, but being up against the ropes like that was a big mistake for him. Joe Smith is not a special fighter, but if he does have anything, it's power. And Hopkins laying up against the ropes like that was giving Smith opportunities to use that attribute that he has and catch him with a big shot. And going into the 8th round, I did have Bernard Hopkins losing the fight, but it wasn't out of reach for him. Had he been able to win most of the remaining rounds, I think that he still would have been able to pull off a victory. But any hopes of pulling off a victory came crashing down in that 8th round, as Bernard Hopkins again was laying up against those fucking ropes, and Joe Smith was able to catch him with a clean shot that stunned Bernard Hopkins. And he followed that with like a 3-4 punch combination of flush shots, and the last punch sent Bernard Hopkins through the ropes, out of the ring, and onto the motherfucking ground head first. And the fight was over after that. I'm actually surprised that Bernard Hopkins was able to get up shortly after falling head first onto the ground like that. Especially as a 51-year-old, because that was a bad fall. I think had that been any other fighter, going through the ropes and falling on the ground head first, they either would have been knocked the fuck out or would have been shaken on the ground like fucking Hulk Hogan after his ass got body slammed back in the day. But that just shows you how tough Bernard Hopkins is. And while this was a very disappointing loss for Hopkins, his legacy is still secure, regardless of this loss. And he's still going to go down as one of the greatest middleweights of all time, who defended that crown 20 times. Fought big names like Tito Trinidad, fought Oscar de la Hoya, he fought Roy Jones twice, Antonio Tarver, fucking schooled Kelly Pavlik. None of those things are going to get erased because of this knockout loss. But I do wish that Bernard Hopkins would have kept it real after the fight. He started saying some shit like that he hurt his ankle and that was the reason why he couldn't continue. And I'm like, man, like you fell through the ropes and you fell on the ground head first. And when you fell down, your legs were in the air. At no point did your ankles bump up against shit when your ass fell to the ground. Had you said something else like, my shoulders messed up or I cracked my fucking skull, that would have been understandable. But your ankles, dog, like, get the fuck out of here, man. That's the only thing that I've kind of found like bullshit about that. But like I said, Bernard Hopkins is still one of the greatest middleweights of all time. Does this tarnish his legacy a bit? Maybe, because that's definitely not how you want to fucking go out of the sport. If his career is a trophy, it's a giant gold-plated shiny trophy that now has a shit stain on it. And that shit stain is Joe Smith. But congratulations to Joe Smith, who now has 2 huge upsets in a row. And let me know your thoughts. Who do you want to see Joe Smith fight next? And what do you think about Bernard Hopkins after this loss? Do you still think his legacy is intact? Or do you think that people are just going to remember him from now on flying through the goddamn ropes? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And as always, if you like this shit, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It's your homeboy Quetzalcoatl, signing the fuck on out.